My next guest is going to be fighting for some hardware this Saturday at North Iowa Fights 20. He's going to be taking on John Ramirez. This is Johnny Hopper joining me here on the program. Johnny, how you doing? I'm doing awesome. Tell me how this all came together with you fighting for North Iowa Fights and fighting for some hardware here.
Yeah, every time I try to get a fight, I guess I end up a main event for some type of title or belt, and it's flattering. I understand what I bring to the table. I know I'm a dangerous individual. I was looking for fights all summer. My last fight was February, and I probably got close to 10 offers over the summer for various UFC Fight Pass promotions. Ultimately, the opponents or their management said no. It's because probably I'm not a safe fight, which is understandable when people try to pad their records, but that's not me. So I've been trying to look all year for a fight, and finally I got one, or I seen there was an offer, and then I messaged the promoter. I said, "Who's the lightweight?" And then he messaged me back saying that I'm talking to your coach for you. And then we just discussed the deal, and he was really excited about the matchup, thinking that it was a BMF worthy belt, and yeah, that's how we got here.
Okay, well, that's good. I'm glad to see you get a fight. I know it's difficult, and it's too bad that you've had to go through so many opponents. But yeah, I know I hear this a lot from fighters. Trust me, it's tough to hear, I would imagine. But let's go all the way back, man. How did you get involved in combat sports? Where did this journey start for you?
This started when I was 7 years old. I was watching pro wrestling, and my dad was telling me that it wasn't real, and then he showed me Hoist Gracie on VHS in like UFC 1 or 2. And I thought it was fake because he was wearing the gi, and I thought it was clothes. And then eventually he would explain to me what it was, and I was really about it. I was always into Mortal Kombat, the Matrix, Ninja Turtles, like combat sports. I was a really active, like hyperactive kid. And I needed to channel that energy somehow. And eventually they would tell me that the sport of wrestling is like the easiest thing, because I grew up in Kansas, and at the time in the early 2000s there was no MMA gyms, there was nobody around me. So I was like trying to my dad and I would hit the bag. He taught me how to box, he was teaching me how to lift weights, and then eventually he was like, okay, this is past my knowledge, I'm gonna put you in the sport of wrestling. And he did, and I was a scrappy kid. I beat up most of the kids for a while, and then eventually the level just changes, and I wasn't as good of a wrestler as I would like to have been. However, the training that I did over the years got me to where I am now, which I wrestled from 7 all the way through high school. I got a college offer to come in the state of Iowa at some small university and wrestle collegiately. I wrestled there for 5 years. During that time, I took my first cage fight when I was 19. My opponent was 34. I got a second round TKO, and I had people coming up to me freaking out, thinking that I was just going to wrestle them and lay on them. But I got a TKO, double legged them, was blocking strikes efficiently. And everybody, promoters, fans, even my opponent after the fight came up to me, black eye, broken nose, and was like, "You beat me up in front of my wife and kids." And I felt bad, but it's that's just this life, And eventually I would take my another fight a year later, won by first round knockout. Third fight was a second round knockout. Fourth fight was a first round knockout, and then my fifth fight was a submission against a 7-0 prospect from St. Louis. And then eventually I would go pro around in my early 20s.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, quite the journey, and really, really cool to see. And along with fighting, what else do you do for a living? What's paying the bills for you right now?
Just fighting mainly. I have some sponsors like the Rock Island Tap. I help them out. It's a local bar here in the town that I live in.
Nice.
Yeah, so they help me out. I've had sponsors through like Elevar Wellness, Sea Phoenix, Atomic Power Wash. Man, I just have like all over people have helped me. I've gotten most of my money through fighting, and that says a lot, because I haven't made a lot of money through combat, and it's been a struggle. There's been times where I've contemplating like, man, should I just walk away from this and just start a family? Because I went to college, I graduated with the degree, and yeah, there was always those talks, but in the back of my head, I know in 10 years I'll try fighting again. So even if I'm hungry, there's nights where I don't eat, and it's not because I'm cutting weight. It's just because I didn't have money to eat. There was times I didn't have a bed to sleep in. So those times I like to remember where I'm at now, and I'm really grateful in being here. So no matter what, if the weight cut sucks, I'm just going to keep going. If I get my nose broke, I'm going to keep going. It's just who I am. I've had a rough life in childhood. My parents did the best they could. However, growing up a Mexican in the Midwest in the United States is, you're going to get a little bit tough. So
Bet.
yeah.
Okay. Well, then, again, it's all it's all come together with what's becoming your fight career, which has been very successful. So yeah, I think everything kind of gets put in perspective when you put it that way. Let's talk about your opponent, John Ramirez. What do you know about him? How do you feel like you match up against him here?
I know he's a well-trained and seasoned fighter. He's fought on various promotions and like Bellator, and he's fought people that are fighting in the UFC right now, and he's didn't get finished by him. He lost by decision. So having said that, I know he's a tough opponent. I know he's dangerous. I know that I'm a human being, and I have like the capability of my lights being put out too. I know who's in front of me, and I know who I am, and I'm pretty confident in this fight. However, I'm gonna take it just as seriously as any other title fight or any fight rather. I know he's game. I know he's really athletic, explosive, strong. He's quick. He's got good striking, probably even better grappling. His ability to mix up combat and martial arts in the cage is very, very good.
Training camp. Tell me a bit about that. Who are some of the main training partners you're working with ahead of this fight?
It's never really a camp. I'm training 24/7. This is my day job. It's a constant grind. Like Josh Neer is my head coach.
Oh,
Josh,
cool. That's a name I haven't heard in a while. That's awesome. One of the OGs, the dentist.
Yeah, man. When I was in college, I was fighting as an amateur, and I knew some people that were fighting as amateurs too. And during the time, sorry, during the time, uh, I was talking to those amateurs. They were like, "Hey, there's a gym up like an hour away. We need to go up to it." And the coach is Josh Neer, and I was like, "I've heard that name before." And then I looked him up, and I remember watching him as a kid, and I was like really excited. I was like, "Wow!" Like to be able to learn from somebody like that, like that's crazy. And I never put two and two together. I'm from Kansas City, and he's from Iowa. That's only like 4 hours apart, 3 hours apart. As a kid, I was so naive, I didn't put that together. But now that I have my life has led me here and I had the opportunity to train under him, I took that opportunity. And it's rough. He's a rough coach. He's a rough fighter, but he's a good coach, and he's a good fighter. He's very knowledgeable. He's very well experienced, and he prepares you in the meanest way possible, which is like what you need. I train with him. I train with his cousin, Dakota Neer, Gavin Urias, Chris Dunn. I've trained with a lot of top people in the state of Iowa, and we all train at Elite Edge MMA in Ankeny, Iowa.
Very cool. That's awesome. I love hearing the OG names like that. And I've watched Josh when he was in the UFC and everything. Like fought Nick Diaz. I mean, he's been in there with everyone. So that's pretty cool. What about your corner? Who will be in the cage with you this Saturday?
Probably Josh Neer and Gavin Urias or Dakota Neer.
Okay, there we go. And weight cut, I'm assuming, is going well. You seem like you're in a great mood, so I imagine everything's going A-okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been great.
Good to hear. And how's this fight playing out on Saturday? How do you see it going down?
My wildest dreams, I want a first round finish, whether that's a first round knockout, TKO, or submission, doctor stoppage, whatever it is. I that's what I'm going for. However, I'm prepared for five brutal rounds, and if I have to finish them in 4 minutes and 59 seconds in the fifth round, that's what I'll do.
Okay. I like it. And where does a win put you? Again, you've got a really good resume. You've like you said, you fight anyone, anytime. How big of a win would this be for you, especially another title or having the opportunity to compete for a title?
It would be pretty big, actually. I think this would be my first title at 155. I think I've had people like from the UFC notice me, and they've seen me fight, and they've basically said he's not ready, but in all reality, they're signing people that aren't ready, and I've been ready since I was 20 years old. They have some scrubs on there, and if they just signed me, they would just know that I'm a bonus winning machine. I put on fight of the nights every time I fight. all my professional all my professional fights except for two have been main events, and the two were co-main events. And I know what I bring to the table. I know who I am as a fighter. Whether I'm the best in the world, that's to be determined. I think I am. I think I'm one of the most exciting fighters. I think I was born for this. And for the UFC to not pick me up already, I think they are overlooking me for sure.
Okay. I love it. Yeah. And listen, I can't disagree with anything you said there, man. Again, the resume, you're good on the mic too, I would say. So, I mean, who wouldn't want that? And I think, yeah, UFC, I mean, that's an entire discussion on its own of how, Contender Series works. And it's just sort of a sausage factory in that regard where they're just kind of they're bringing in fighters that are exciting, but maybe aren't ready. So we could talk about that another time. But before we go, what are some of your other hobbies outside of fighting? I know you're busy. You got a lot going on. Everything's going into this fighting thing, but you watching other sports, you video game guy. What do you got going on outside of training and everything?
Basically just video games. If I have time, like at night, I'll if I can't sleep, I'll play video games. But recently, I've been so exhausted that I've just been crashing. If I'm not wrestling, doing jujitsu, striking, or mixing it all together, I'm running and lifting. This is just like who I am. Or I'm cooking. I'm trying to figure out how to better my nutrition. It's just life's like one big video game. I run my miles to build my endurance. I drink my water to put hydration in me. I eat my protein to build strength. It's just one big video game, and I'm grateful for the challenge.
And I guess we could say you've got one of the Mortal Kombat bosses on Saturday you got to face until you get higher, until you get to the ones in the UFC. So we're looking forward to it. It's North Iowa Fights 20, November 30th. The big thing here, though, is if you can't see this fight in person, go check it out on Spectation Sports. That's who's going to be streaming this card. It's a lot of good fights on here. Johnny, really appreciate the time, man. If there's anyone you want to thank before we get out of here, any sponsors, any social media you want to mention, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, my social media on Instagram is Mr. Consistency. On Facebook, it's Johnny Showstopper Hopper. On Twitter, it is The Grizzly, TheeGrizzlee. I want to thank my parents, my mom, my dad, my coach, Josh Neer, all my former wrestling coaches like Coach Scott and Coach Reed. Everybody that's basically helped me get to where I am. They've given me little pieces to be successful and the person I am today. And I'm extremely grateful.